A new research report suggests university academics have an important role to play in addressing the media challenge of pervasive misinformation. Academic experts and the media in America explores the benefits and realities of working with journalists. Dr. Henrik Christensen participated in that report. He's the director of the Context Robotics Institute at UC San Diego, a well-known expert and national policy leader for the field of robotics. Dr. Christensen, thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Robotic technologies, artificial intelligence, these are complex topics. In your experience, how do your colleagues feel about sharing their academic expertise with the media? Is there some form of hesitancy?
Well, I'm sure there's some form of hesitancy, and then so it comes down to I think there's all these famous sort of where they feel, how do I know they're going to take my story and be sort of faithful to it? How do I make sure they're not going to chop it up? How do I make sure they're not going to jump a question on me and say, hey, what about? So knowing this, and that's why I think it's very important that we build a relationship with journalists in such a way that we do this. First of all, I do research on a journalist before I talk to them. I want to know, is this one of the people that are sort of going to give me a hard time about something without telling me? Or is this somebody that I can trust will be a good steward of the message I'm trying to get out?
Well, for many people, even the thought of media interviews can be stress inducing. How have you become more comfortable about sharing your complex academic work with journalists when there's a demand for an expert opinion in that area?
Well, so first of all, I've had media training, which I actually think is very important for every academic to get real media training, so that you understand things like, so I know if I do this, I will look 15 years older than if I sort of lean forward a little bit. Knowing these small tricks sort of makes a huge difference on this. Knowing, where are you? When I think I look up here. Knowing these sort of small cues is very important so that you feel comfortable. And I think it's important. You don't want to come across sweating and like, "Ooh, this is scary." So you need to do it a number of times, and then you need to do your research. But I think it's very important for us as academics to understand, how do you communicate with everyday people. So as you said, robotics sounds really complex. What do we do? And you need to figure out, how can you communicate it. So to me, robotics is about, how do we empower people in their daily life? How do we improve quality of life for people? And how do we help solve some of the big challenges in the world? Don't start out with some technical blah, blah, blah. And people are like, what? You need to take it to a level where everybody can appreciate what it is that you're doing and what is the value you're bringing to society.
Now, what does it mean to me? I believe that's what the viewer wants to know. Besides that satisfaction that comes from sharing your research discoveries, what benefits has media engagement brought to your work, your university, and the community as a whole?
Well, so I think it's a two-way street. So first of all, I think by being in the media, you can help sort of set the record straight. There's a lot of discussions, especially the last 4 years, about fake news. As a scientist, you have a mission to go and tell people, this is what the data are telling us. This is what we know, and not try and color it with all sorts of, one way or another. As a scientist, we should be studying truth, and we should use this to sort of say, this is the best estimate of what we think the world looks like. And then bring it to a level where we can communicate this to regular people. And by doing this, you are also helping sort of creating awareness about the research you're doing. You're spreading it out, but also you're getting people interested. So I work with a number of elementary school kids and high school kids, and they get excited because they get it. And we need to fill the pipeline. One of our big challenges is, how do we get more people into STEM and into STEAM? How can we use this to sort of get people to not be said, oh, this is complicated, this is hard, I don't want to do this. This should be something where there's a room for everything. And we need science to help us solve the big problems like food, health, the climate. these very fundamental problems. And that's where, by going out and being an ambassador, because that in some sense is what you're doing when you go and talk to media, you're an ambassador for science and you're an ambassador for academia. And we should use this as an opportunity to go and tell people and say, you know what, there is a way of communicating truth. There's a place of studying this that will help the world population in the future.
Well, to your point, trust levels are low. News media credibility needs a shot in the arm. So, from the other side of the coin, how important is it for journalists to include academics as credible sources in their reporting?
Well, so I think it's important to have scientists in there as long as we try to be truthful. And that is very important. The scientists should be the conveyors of, here is the best estimate of what we know. Here is the best estimate of what we're trying to do. And journalists should use that as a way of grounding whatever their reporting is, to sort of say, this is how we do things. This is what we know today. We should use this to sort of tell the public about this. And it is scary today. We see tremendous amount of polarization in media on both sides. So I'm not going to say one side is better than the other. The problem is that we're seeing this polarization, and that's not helping, because a lot of people don't watch multiple media. So they don't watch the full spectrum. I'm a Dane by birth. I listen to Danish news, I listen to BBC, and I listen to some of the American media, but I sort of make sure I get a broad enough picture to do this. A lot of people don't have that luxury. And that's where you should bring in scientists that will sort of help you to make sure that they're delivering the best possible message to you, so you can make up your own mind about this.
Good point and great advice. Do you think that universities are doing all they can to support staff initiatives to work with the media? Are there suggestions of what they could maybe be doing better?
So the short answer is no. So because I think it's very important that we have more academics that have been trained and understand the process. If somebody sends me a media request, the first thing I do is I go and I do research. I ask our media people and said, somebody send me a request about this. What can you tell me? Is this going to be a story in one direction or in another direction? What can I expect? Do we know, are they going to be faithful ambassadors? So if they come and say, we want to ask you about this, it's not like, oh, by the way, we also want to ask you about blah. And suddenly you're like, uh-oh. So that's important, that what are you walking into? What can you do? So I turned down media requests and said, no, I don't think you're going to be an honest broker of the message. For that reason, I don't want to talk to you. But you have to go through this process to understand this. Then I think it's important that you get media training, whether it's for written media, for radio, or for television, and you understand, what does it take? What does the process look like? What can you do to sort of make sure that your appearance is reasonable? Don't show up in striped clothing. It's going to look terrible. So there's a number of these things that you should know, so that you can walk in there and say, I've done the best possible I can to prepare myself for this, and then enjoy it. But I think having that media training where you feel comfortable that you can do this is incredibly important.
Well, there's clearly mutual value and benefit when academics share their experience with the media. Dr. Christensen, thank you so much for your participation in the report and for sharing your experience with it today.
Hey, thank you for having me.